Hello and welcome to the Amateur Skeptics podcast, podcast number 52. With me tonight, the High Papist of the Reformed Conference of 1842 Church of Atheism, Kimberly.
Hey everybody.
And also a professional pareidolia analyst, Mac.
Yeah. Hey.
And our host in exile, Eric.
Blessed be.
And the man who's got nothing on, Dirk Diggler.
Shut your mouth.
Ian. I am the kind of man that will smack you with a tuna, Brian. How is everybody this evening?
Well, Brian, you can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
Not even a tuna fish?
Yeah.
How is everybody doing?
Doing
All
great.
right. We have added to the family this week. I was telling you guys earlier about Tango, our conure, who has just come into our house and is already ruling my life.
So now you have a wife and a bird to rule your life?
Yes.
Is your conure from the east or from the west?
No, we actually nixed the name Conure West. Plus, I'm pretty sure it's trademarked. We also nixed Conure McLeod and Sarah Conure.
Nice.
All right. Well, let's get on to some announcements.
All right, straight to them. I'll go through them real quick. Tomorrow night, which is going to be Tuesday the 7th, we're gearing up for a planning meeting for the Skeptic Camp in Colorado. Will happen probably sometime, I guess, early summer. I don't know the dates. I'll have more information after the planning meeting, I suppose. On Thursday the 9th, the Boulder Apologetics group I've talked about before is going to be doing questions on the doctrine of hell and the unevangelized. And I got to tell you guys, I don't know if I can do this crap anymore with them.
Really?
Yeah, I think I mean, with a topic like that, I just don't think I can attend. So I'll see. I'll see what happens on Thursday.
You probably just have to send your apologies.
Maybe. So, Sunday the 12th, I think it's going to be a real fun meeting for the Humanists of Colorado. There's a group called Move to Amend, and it's talking about the recent changes that have happened that have allowed corporations to spend indiscriminately on politics, and an effort to change that. Especially this year, I think that's an important one. Monday, February 13th, we've mentioned before at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, it's Darwin Day with Sean B. Carroll, who's apparently a very big author in evolution. So he will be there presenting, which should be great. I've got tickets for that one, so I'm excited for that.
On that, Kimberly, let me just in real quick on that Move to Amend. I personally do not believe that politicians can be bought. I believe they can be rented, however.
Oh, just rented.
Just rented.
I think once you get into some people's hands, I think you may be there for life. I think there'd be a very good argument for, say, like, you know, a politician who thinks they're doing the greater good and they'll kind of get bought this time to do something good with the efforts. I don't think they ever come back out of it. So I think they might rent to own.
That's a possibility.
So. And then they just
All
come
right.
out of the closet later and nobody wants them.
So continuing with announcements, on Wednesday the 15th, we've got Neil deGrasse Tyson here at CU. There's going to be a dinner beforehand. On Saturday the 18th, Mile High Skeptics are going to be drinking skeptically. That should be a fun one. On Sunday the 19th, you can take your hangover over to Brooklands for eudaimonia. This one's going to be about bringing your own false idols, basically the kind of stuff that you, despite all of your non-beliefs or whatnot, may actually kind of believe in. Should be an interesting one. The eudaimonias usually are. And finally, on Tuesday, the 21st, Cafe Psi is doing a presentation on do economics need ethics? So we'll see how that goes. That's over at the Wine Coop.
And
that's your announcements.
Yep. And on the 25th will be the IIG meeting, and we'll be talking about 3 of our projects that we want to get going. We want to look at some pet psychics. We have some claims about water that we want to investigate, and maybe it's just of course, you know, our paranormal research project that we want to get moving on. So we've got some stuff that we want to get moving on with the IIG. We've got some project ideas, so hopefully we've got to buckle down now. It's time, and I gotta start pushing. So
Yeah, you also need to put it up on Meetup.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. So there you go.
All right, and we're gonna move on here, and
Apparently, I have to admit a mistake I made.
well,
I was
just
just wondering
one.
if anyone's called you on this yet. It's been a month now, so I don't know.
Yeah, they had,
It
but
wasn't-
apparently I was wrong. In Star Trek, they did go to the galactic core. I was
Okay.
talking about how I thought they only stayed in like our area of the galaxy, but apparently in Star Trek they did make it to the galactic core. I was wrong. I apologize.
Because that's where God lives.
You know what? And if people knew their fuse tree, they would they would have already known that.
So
And so
I admit I was wrong.
here, that's what I
I
forgot.
got called out on it.
So
All I know is that you don't try jumping through a wormhole during a solar flare because you end up in the 1960s.
all right.
How's that a
Nobody
bad
wants
thing?
that.
And so the other thing that happened, I was came out last week. I was on the Invisible Sky Monsters podcast, the one that I chastised Kimberly for going on. I was on last week, and so Dumbass and I have been fighting over Kimberly, and that man slapped me with his glove. So in retaliation, because it's only fair, I hit him with a tuna. He has challenged me to a duel in the Thunderdome for Kimberly's affections, to which I readily accepted, and I will accept. And when he hears back from the Santa Monica Event Center, also commonly known as the Thunderdome, it's on. We're gonna go.
And Kimberly, since you're apparently the prize in this, are you
Yes.
all for it or what?
I've already kind of sent my regrets that no matter when it is, I will not be attending, because I will be trying to reestablish my credibility as a feminist, because I'm apparently not doing so well, falling into these archaic tropes. But I'm embarrassed to say, a little bit flattering. I think they're completely insane, but it has been a very fun running joke with Dumbass and now tuna wielding Brian.
Where
I don't know
did
how
you get the
Jennifer
tuna?
feels about all this, but
Where did I
it's very sweet.
where did I get it, or where did I come up with it?
You just happen to have a tuna with you?
I keep one in my pocket, sir.
Wow, you have enormous pockets.
That's
Brian-
what they tell me.
I'll have to teach you how to sharpen a frozen tuna into a shiv.
Well, Kimberly, even if you choose not to participate, we will fight to the death over you anyway, or at least until one of us is wounded. That would probably be acceptable.
Yeah, it's been a very fun little dialogue going back and forth. It was a very fun episode to listen to too. So definitely go out there, go download it. I think you'll have a good time. Dumbass is a pretty funny guy.
I'm just picturing Puke and Snot at the end of their performance at the Renaissance Festival, where they've both wounded each other fatally, and they're sitting there going, your hair and your fingernails grow for weeks after you die. The other guy says, yeah, but your phone calls taper off.
So the other guest host on that was Sarah Mayhew, and she's done a lot of stuff. She's she has a TED Talk that you can go and find. She's a really interesting person. Much more skeptical cred than I, and she was able to give a laundry list of stuff that she has done that I had to follow somehow. Poorly. I had to follow poorly, I should say. So she's pretty neat. And I haven't really checked out her manga art stuff that she does. I looked at some of the artwork and stuff like that. So, but I definitely want to get that and take a look at it. My wife really likes manga, so that'll work out too. But she's pretty neat.
Hey, you got your news in my science.
You got your science in my news.
It's science news.
So tell me, if you see shadows on a planet, a distant planet,
Well,
what is the first assumption you should make about those shadows?
Well, okay. Basically, the story we're referring to is Russian scientist claims scorpion-like alien found on Venus. NASA disagrees. So back in '82, the Russians sent a probe to Venus. Now you have to take understand that all the probes that have ever been sent to Venus have lasted maybe an hour or two inside the atmosphere before they basically melt down to nothing. No probe has ever survived going to Venus. We've gotten some stuff back, but very little. And, it's a pretty chaotic atmosphere.
From the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we have probes in orbit.
Go into the atmosphere and, land, but they don't survive. You can't, So anyways, apparently back in 82, they got some video from it, and they've not talked about it till then, which I find interesting. But according to Leonid Kasfalmilti,
I'm sure your pronunciation is excellent.
Kasan Famalditi.
Okay, well, he said from the Space Research Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences, he published an analysis of the video. And he basically claimed that there was a creature moving around, for, I think it said 26 minutes that you can see this thing moving around, and he believes it to be a life form. And basically everyone else has come out saying, yeah, probably not. But it's a disc-shaped object and a black patch. Basically, from the sounds of it, there was no real details you could make of it. There is an atmosphere there, so, you do have, like, wind and stuff going on, so it is, I think it's rather absurd to automatically assume that it's a creature. It could be something being blown around by the wind and stuff. So it's an interesting little thing, one of those things where, real scientists are making bizarre claims, which does happen. Is this for attention? Why? Don't know, but, the video is out there. I actually couldn't find the video online, but I'm sure someone probably knows how to if they really looked into it. But, so yeah, needless to say, NASA's, saying no, we don't believe that. And, looking at much more rational reasoning as to what's causing it. So,
here's the thing. We don't know what's on the surface, right? So, it's just not completely impossible, but
it gets up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right, exactly.
Our metal probes are being basically incinerated, melted down to nothing because, they can't withstand.
Hold on a minute. At 800 degrees Fahrenheit?
Oh, well, maybe not melted down, but basically they can't work. We send them in.
Okay. I was going to say the metal won't necessarily melt at 800 degrees, but I can see the electronics failing.
Right. The insides are basically
acid rain and gravity.
There's a lot. Venus is not hospitable, at least as far as we know.
So for any life that we know about,
we also, as far as we know, isn't the atmosphere caustic, which could also affect our probes?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, it is not nice there. So the idea that something could live there is, admittedly not completely out of the realm of possibility, but
it would have to be life other than what we understand.
Way other than what we understand.
Yeah.
But I think your original
like
point
the link that I just posted in Skype.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
Oh, but just seeing like a little bit of a dot kind of move across a grainy picture.
Yeah.
Coming up with the conclusion, therefore, we found life on Venus seems a little extreme.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially since every single video or picture we ever get from space is always in black and white. Always. Even if they colorize it afterwards. But everything we get from space is in black and white to begin with. So there is a certain lack of detail, especially, we're talking about 1982. Yeah. This was 30 years ago. The technology then was not going to be anywhere near as good as we have now. And even now, while we're getting some great pictures from Mars and stuff, even that is not, your perfect digital stuff that we get with the cameras. So, you're talking about 30 years ago, what was coming back probably didn't have much detail to it.
No, I would tend to agree that it's probably nothing. So if you have a snake that's too big, I think the optimal thing to do is to
talk about it in the latter part of the podcast.
Yeah, well, and to let it go in the Everglades. Yeah, right, exactly.
Oh, you're talking about an actual snake.
I was talking about an actual snake. I wasn't talking about a trouser snake. If that snake gets so big that you gotta let it go, I don't know what to say for you. But the Everglades have got a serious problem right now, because a lot of these hobbyists have let their pet pythons go, and probably it's not just pythons. There's probably, I would imagine, large boas and stuff, but definitely the reticulated and Burmese pythons have successfully been able to breed in the Everglades. I'm pretty sure that it's both species. I know for sure Burmese pythons. And am I wrong?
Burmese pythons, yellow anacondas, and 2 other invasive constrictors are invaded the park.
So there you go, boas and pythons. And so they're a little concerned about the wildlife in that. They said that some of these species have dropped 30%, some of the mammals.
Oh, the first picture they show, they have 3 people holding a 15-foot-long Burmese python weighing more than 160 pounds that was captured in the Everglades. Its stomach contained a 6-foot gator.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So they're a little concerned because certainly the ecology of this area is changing because of these invasive species. They have set up shop here and they're doing quite well. Deer, raccoons, whatever they can. What's that? Rabbits. Sure. But I mean, man, some of these things. But yeah, but the alligators. There's kind of a draw there. As to if it eats an alligator, whether or not it will be able to keep that meal. And the next picture, or the next, the next one in here is a gator that basically tried to claw its way out of a snake.
Okay. Well, is the gator not suffocated before it tries to eat it?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not. Yeah, that.
Remember, gators are amphibious, so they probably can hold their breath for quite a while.
Right, but. They can hold their breath for quite a while, but one of the things that the python does is it squeezes the breath out of the creature that it's. I mean, we're talking about some incredible muscle action.
If you don't exhale, then there's no constriction. It moves in when you move in, and you can't move back out again.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for clarifying that.
Right. Yeah, and I know the one thing with gators is the main strength is actually when the jaws close, not when they open.
Right.
So, they actually might have been kind of passive and just let itself get swallowed and figured,
Right, but as I remember, these animals, some of them can kind of go into a hibernation state. So if it was holding its breath and it slowed down its heartbeat enough, the snake might have thought it was dead and tried to eat it, and then it woke up in the snake. I don't think that that's completely out of the realm of possibility. Am I off my rocker, Eric?
I don't know. It doesn't sound too plausible. Okay.
So I think that's what happened here. So there is a chance that, some of these species will, they're going to kind of duel it out. So, but gators are not going to be the big loser here. It looks like it's other mammals.
Yeah.
So something I found interesting.
Yeah, well, the thing is, this is caused by man. This type of stuff has happened in nature before without our, being anywhere near it.
Oh, well, no, but...
So, there is a level of this is the way nature works.
Well, sure.
We just, in this case, happened to kind of alter it ourselves, but, I don't know how much we could do to stop it at this point. It's almost one of those things that you have to let play out and let it find its own balance.
Well, we have a basic
We wiped out other alpha predators from the United States in the past, so it's possible.
Yeah, the jaguar are gone.
This time we do it not to protect our livestock, but to protect wildstock.
Yeah. I mean, the reason that there's no jaguar left here in the United States is because we hunted them all. So.
The puma and the bobcat are way down.
They're way down, yeah. So.
Now, something interesting, and I need to check this and verify it, but it's possible that in Texas, it looks like sugar gliders that have gotten loose, Australian sugar gliders that have gotten loose from being people's pets, may be thriving. Guy has a video of sugar gliders basically taking over his bird feeder and emptying it. So the environment is similar enough in Texas to the Australian outback that it's livable. So,
well, and of course, we have zebra mussels. That in the Great Lakes we have an invasive carp species. I think it's even
we've
here
got
as far as Colorado.
snakeheads.
Yeah, so a lot of this kind of stuff that we've introduced to the environment. And even in Australia, didn't they bring in cats to deal with a rodent population? Now they got a feral cat problem, something like that. So so sometimes it's intentional.
It's a whole series of events with Australia.
Well, yeah, okay, so there's a bunch of them there.
Bring in the rabbits, bring in the foxes to deal with the rabbits, and you get the foxes.
Okay,
just keeps it rolling over.
Yeah, so All right. So, I guess it's time for a lesson in confirmation bias, Kimberly.
Yeah, I put this in because I just thought it was really funny to find. The article is called "Low IQ and Conservative Beliefs Linked to Prejudice." So they did a study and basically found that people who have extremist views about racism or really conservative values have tested at lower IQs than people with more progressive or liberal views. They go into a lot of detail about how the studies were done and stuff, and they do point out that this is correlation, not causation. As much as I'd love to have that definitive, if you believe this, you are dumb. But I will grant that that's not what is proven here. But I thought it was just a fun article, very interesting. Some of the things I thought were really great about the article was, again, how it really talked about this is what the research says and this is what the research does not say. Again, just kind of cautioning us about making huge leaps when some data comes in. There's lots of possibilities as to causation. There's no way to really control for any of this stuff. I thought I did a good job with that. One of the things that I picked out was, it was kind of talking about people just taking extreme views. And they said, in other words, it might not be a particular ideology that is linked to stupidity, but extremist views in general. And that was, I thought, just a good way of kind of putting it, that people who are not open to change, who aren't open to taking new data in and adjusting their worldview, probably do have a lower intelligence level, the way we understand intelligence, and just like things to be simpler. So
yeah, but there are some flaws with the IQ test system, though, too, and in what it actually tests. I know that they've been trying some other different things. There's a lot of focus now on emotional IQ instead of the straight IQ test. It's trying to understand not only what you know, but how you know it and how you relate to it.
The other thing is, we've seen studies in the past that show that smart people are able to talk themselves into ideas that aren't rational. Smart people who believe in ghosts and religion and stuff like that, and they're better at convincing themselves of these things because they are smarter and better at convincing other people. So
they have better arguments for their own minds.
Exactly. And I did like the point that it made. It's like, listen, I mean, so they're talking in generalities, but it's like, so in general, men are taller than women statistically. But that doesn't mean if you grab or grab a random man and a random woman that you might not find a shorter man and a taller woman. So
particularly if the man is Danny DeVito.
There you go.
You'll probably get slapped if you just grab a random man and a random woman.
Probably you might get slapped. Yeah.
But that pertains more to the latter part of the show anyway.
And right, exactly, and what you're filming at the time. All right, let's move on to some religious news.
I'm not religious, man, but I'm spiritual.
Well, this is follow-up to some of the stuff that's been going on for a while now. But with you have over the last few decades more and more claims of sexual abuse by the Catholic Church. Well, apparently this one Catholic group is calling those child rape victims a pitiful bunch of malcontents.
Classy.
No, okay, but here's the thing. Here, let's remember who this is. This is Bill Donahue, the same adopt an atheist guy.
Yeah, but basically the Catholic League, who Bill Donahue's the president of, has called the victims of priest abuse pitiful bunch of malcontents and professional victims. And apparently he's been saying a lot of stuff. It's kind of sad because it doesn't defend what was done, but I guess they seem to think it is like, oh, well, it happened, all these years ago. Just why do you guys keep bringing it up?
So his advice to people who've been sexually abused and had their lives damaged by that is to suck it up?
Pretty much.
Okay.
How dare they think that they should come back and try and stop it from happening to other people?
Okay, but let's
shut up.
Let's try to make one of his points here. One of his points is that all this stuff is all of a sudden coming out, and that maybe it's not real. Maybe it's it's being overblown. So I had 3 questions, because that's kind of where I felt like he was coming from, that this is ridiculous and overblown. is child molestation more common in the Catholic Church or in the Protestant churches? Or is it about the same there? And is it more prevalent in churches than it is in the general population? And I really could not get to the bottom of those answers. That's why I put the things in there that I did to show that this is not just the Catholic Church. We've got a lot of this going in Protestant churches, right. And it's even more underreported in Protestant churches, it seems like, than it is in Catholic churches. But the Catholic churches, it is rampant. At least the reported, just the reported cases.
One time with Catholic churches, there is a history of them covering up. There is a history of them basically, okay, well, the bishop's doing it here, we'll move him to another place. And he starts doing it there. I don't, the Protestant church, if they're doing that, they haven't gotten as much publicity about doing it as the Catholic church has.
Right. But it's still happening even in the Protestant churches. And I wanted to make sure that we made that point, that this is not just the Catholic Church. This happens with, the Baptists and the Lutherans and all these other sects.
But part of it is, you get these people in such a position of authority as a priest and stuff where you basically are telling your kids, this person is perfect. You should do everything they say. And if this person who is human has, something wrong up there, and yet these kids are being told, oh, I have to do whatever this perfect person says, you open the door for all sorts of stuff. I don't care who it is. You tell your kids, listen, if that guy's going to tell you to do something you're not comfortable with, you say no. That's how they should be taught, but they're not. I've seen it. The priests are supposed to be these perfect things that you hold up above everyone else, and you are supposed to listen to everything they say, and they're not supposed to make a mistake.
Don't you think that that's a failure of expectation then? Because here's the thing is that we're expecting people to act above people. Right. To act more moral than everybody else. And the fact of the matter is that in the end, we're all people. So I think that part of this is, our expectations are flawed.
Well, they're also expecting priests to basically subvert a natural instinct, and when you subvert a natural instinct, the more you subvert it, the more it's going to come out in unusual ways.
Okay, that's an interesting claim, and I'd like to see more statistics on that, because I can see where you might want to make that claim, but just because I'm repressing my sexuality doesn't mean that it should make me more likely to molest a child. I think that there's a disconnect there.
And it's an opinion that I'm stating.
Oh, and that's fine. But let's make. Okay. So that's fine if that's an opinion.
But Brian, you're not repressing your sexuality.
No, I'm not. No, not at all.
Yeah, so you don't know either.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Okay, that's a good point, because I'm not repressing my sexuality, and I have no intentions to.
Yeah. And Mac, what you're saying has logic to it, and I think we all kind of agree there. We could see the reasoning behind it, but that I agree with Brian. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So the opinion is based on a very logical, rational way of thinking, but it's whether or not we can prove it is the issue.
Yeah, and the Catholic Church, I think, has gotten into so much problems here because I certainly think that any kind of molestation of children is pretty much the worst crime you could possibly commit. And they are right when they point out that this is not something that only happens in Catholic churches. Like you say, it happens in other denominations. It happens in other places. I mean, you could have, this happen anywhere, in a school, in Boy Scouts, any place where you put adults and children in the same place. You can only do so much, right, to ensure the safety of everybody involved. You can do your background checks and stuff like that to make it as safe as possible. But anytime you walk out of your door, you assume some risks. So I get what they're saying there. My feeling with the Catholic Church is that they have taken this worst offense possible, and the circumstances have gotten even worse because, as Ian pointed out, they're moving priests around. They're hiding the evidence. They have this attitude of, we don't need to answer to anybody. That you shouldn't complain if this happens. And as was also pointed out, these are people in a position of authority, not just authority over your life, but over your soul and your entire immortal existence if you buy into all this shit, which is why it's so dangerous. So, you are taught to follow these directions. This is your conduit to God. So if it seems a little bit strange, well, God works in mysterious ways. So it all reinforces itself, and it's, I think, a new level of insidious that does I mean, this sounds horrible, does beat out a different form of sexual molestation. I'm certainly not giving anybody a free pass here. Do not say I'm saying that.
Not all that new, though.
No, but it's an abuse. It's an abuse of power. That,
it is.
It's the entire reason it's so terrible. It just compounds it. It makes it even a bad situation even worse to the nth degree. And again, like you say, the Catholics get it maybe even more because they do have this power structure, this hierarchy, and the corruption seems to go all the way to the top.
Yeah,
and then what you have is the higher up Catholics almost defending it, trying to blow it off and pretend it's nothing to make a big deal about. It's like, I don't care if it's more common or less common, it's still something you need to make a big deal about and address. And say, okay, we will do what we can to stop it. Instead of saying, well, I don't know if it really happened, maybe they're just looking for attention, but it's like, no, you don't, to react to it that way shows that you guys really are not understanding the true issue here.
Yeah. So I put a couple of things in there just to show that, that the reporting is going on in the Protestant churches as well. And, but it was interesting just how high the claims were, in the Catholic Church 1 year. Actually in just one, I think this was just in Ireland. So, pretty rough. So,
yeah.
All right.
And one of the articles talked about 260 sex abuse cases a year that they hear of. And I just put in the statistic without even going into holidays as to what days you get off. If you just exclude weekends, there's 261 business days a year. So let's say that's all your chances to report it. That averages to 1 a day.
Yeah.
That's just so terrible.
That was the Protestant churches, from 2007. They're reporting from 2007, in which they thought the statistic was at least only half of the actual cases that had happened got reported. They figured it was double the actual, abuses.
Yeah, although, to point out that that's kind of a tough claim to really kind of, say, because how do we know what the real rate of not reporting is? I agree. It's probably, I think there's a lot of people who go to their grave with knowledge that they never share with anybody. It's so traumatizing that they don't. But, it's just a tough one to prove. The other thing I found really interesting in the articles, and I don't know that I 100% believe them, was that the rates have stayed steady for 30 years. Now that suggests that there has not been this hysterical reaction, like that since these news reports have come out and since we're talking about it more in the last 10 years than we did over the last 30, it's not like all people are rushing to make these claims. It made it sound like, it's been the same number kind of constantly, which means one, they haven't put anything into place that has quelled it. Two, it doesn't sound like it's a hysterical reaction, like, everybody wants to go out and get their own accusation in there or anything like that. It tends to make me think that they're more legit because you're not seeing this hysterical following, this mass kind of thing. But I'm also really surprised at that just because we do hear so much more about it now. I do think we live in a culture where it would be reported more often today than it would have been 30 years ago.
Well,
and yet the numbers haven't changed.
When I talked with my grandparents and stuff, you got the impression that their generation would very much hide something like that. You don't talk about it. If it happens, you kind of look the other way and, because it would shame the family and stuff. Nowadays, we don't have that mentality. We very much say, no, we don't give a damn about the family. You fucked up. To the child molesters, we're going to go after you. Yeah. And there really is a different mentality there. And I think that plays a huge role in the fact that we don't let this stuff happen. We come in and say, no, we're not worried about what our neighbors are going to think. We're worried about what the hell actually is going on.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's moving on. Do atheists need a temple?
Kimberly, is your atheist temple going to look as pretty as this one in Britain?
The Black Tower one? I hope so.
You mean the kind of spiraled window thing? Is that what it is? The one that kind of looks like a dildo?
Yeah.
Or a vibrator?
My eyes just kind of keep following it to the tip.
That's an existing building.
You're talking about the government building there.
Is that the government building? So that's the government building.
Yeah, no, that's not the proposed temple. That is London's. Is it the new Parliament?
No, I don't think so. But I don't know what.
I think they call it the Gherkin. I've seen it in shows.
Really? Well, it looks like a vibrator. Oh, we're gonna get.
What's on your mind?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
That's the next story. Hold on, just a.
Wait. All right. So, do I need an atheist temple? All right, Kimberly, tell me about it.
Actually, this is my article.
Oh, this is yours?
The Atheist Temple.
You know what? Nobody's names are on these things. Is that why? Because you didn't put your name on anything?
I thought I put my name on these.
No.
But doesn't matter.
That's why I thought it was Kimberly.
Basically, I thought this was kind of interesting. They're essentially, Alain de Botton announced plans to build an atheist temple in the United Kingdom. He's got it dedicated to the idea of perspective. It's going to scale 46 meters, with each centimeter honoring Earth's age of 4.6 billion years. He's also got a book coming out called Religion for Atheists, pointing to design, art, and community to inspire and attract a following. He hopes to create a number of such atheist temples. Now, one of the interesting things about this is that I don't know if this is a serious intention to build an atheist temple or if this is a attempt to essentially spark discussion, because, it's got a poll out now. The Guardian in Britain has got a poll out saying, do atheists need a temple? And Richard Dawkins is condemning the idea, saying that it's a waste of money and a contradiction of terms. So, I guess the question is...
I'm with Dawkins.
I just read an article that was talking about atheism in America and how basically they are the bottom rung in how we are treated. They are viewed as the really immoral ones. Worse than, honestly, right now it's worse than homosexual, worse than Muslims, worse than any of those. If you come out as an atheist in the wrong community, you will basically be shunned. You will find that, you can't get the right jobs. You cannot function. And the one thing that came out was these atheists are using the internet to find, other atheists to communicate with now. And there is a sense of community building up due to the need for this. And I think that it might actually be something needed in that regard, to build that sense of community in order to say, hey, listen, you are part of a real community. You don't have to hide it. You don't have to be in the closet about it. Because,
Then make a community center.
Yes.
Yeah. And a temple might not be the right name for it, but essentially, I think that may be the only thing that's kind of off. Otherwise, it actually makes sense.
There are some people that think that, atheism is a religion. And you say atheism is not a religion, and now they can say you have a temple.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing: we're working on this here in Colorado. We're working on a space, that is going to be a, more of a secular atheist space that we're going to have that, that'll be in a building for us, to build that sense of community. But quite frankly, if they called it a temple, I wouldn't participate.
Yeah. So the main flaw there is calling it a temple, but saying we are going to build a atheist meeting place would sound a lot better. Although maybe we need to come up with our own terminology now. What is our equivalent?
It's a room with booze.
It's not just a room. It's
I
not
like
just
the word,
a room at all.
I like the word tabernacle personally.
I like the word bar.
We're almost at we are at a point where we as a community can start coming. If you have a temple, you have a church, you have all these other things. They've all come up with their own terminology for their places to meet. We need to invent our own terminology. We need to say, hey, wait, we're going to come up with our own lexicon of what our stuff is, what is meaningful to us. We can do that, and
we can call it a synagogue.
Oh yeah. Or we can just call ourselves Brights.
Well, hold on before we go off on this whole thing. I think there's a lot here. I mean, yeah. I will agree that temple is probably not a great name because of some of the connotations involved. However, if it's a matter of, I do kind of get where the guy's coming from. He's talking about a temple being basically a place to to congregate and to show what you idealize, reason, free thinking, all that kind of stuff.
Because atheists need a place to gather and not pray.
Yes.
About...
In my opinion, absolutely we do. We need a place that we have a community built. And I will further go on and say this is kind of like when we get into like the gay marriage kind of questions. Should we just have it separate but equal? You guys can have temples, we'll have hugamongs. I mean, why do we need a new fucking name? Why can't we use the same kind of name to express the fact that this is a place where we gather, where we find community, where we discuss the things that we idealize? Yes. Not worship, but idealize. And again, we're going back to, oh, well, they've had the name for 2,000 years, so they get to own it and define it however they want. No. Stop giving them that power.
There are certain connotations that would go with the name temple, and the same kind of connotations go with the word marriage. And I have been in support of abolishing the word marriage and calling it something else. And I'm in support of that here too. Let's not call it a temple. I'm fine with community center.
I think you'd probably say you were fine with separate but equal then. I mean, why give in to the haters?
Here's an idea. A lot of the churches in town are having financial trouble. Why don't you just rent space from a church and gather there?
I don't think we're talking so much about the logistics of this as much as, and again, I will agree with you. Temple would not be the first name I would pick, but I don't think it needs to be dismissed. Just
consider that the church in question is going to owe the fact that it's still open to the fact that atheists rent space.
I know you're making a joke, but this stuff already happened.
Actually, I'm not.
The humanists meet at a church.
Okay.
So they have the spaces, they have the tax-free status to go ahead and do this easily, anytime they want, with about 1 million protections in the law that they get that we don't, because we're running away from words that they claim to own.
Oh. All right. Okay, we're going to move on.
Just one little point.
Okay.
To Mac's point, he didn't know if the guy was serious or not. He said half the funds have been raised, so I'm pretty sure he's serious about building the temple.
Well,
I could say half the funds have been raised for anything, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the funds are going to go to what they've been raised for. It could just be a discussion point. It could just be to reinvigorate debate.
But we have this secular hub coming here in Colorado. And this is on its way. That we've got the funding. They got the last funder finally. So it's going to happen. We're going to have a space for atheists and for secularists and free thinkers. So I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm opposed to the word temple. I really am.
And actually, secular hubs, I do agree, sounds a lot better.
I do. Yeah.
I will agree with you. I think it was a very wise choice. I just think that we need to be very careful of running away from words. Words are powerful. And, another thing that I found really interesting about all this was the classification in the news that Dawkins and this guy were fighting, that they were coming to blows. It was all of this very angry, violent rhetoric. Yeah. And Dawkins basically said, I don't like it. Doesn't sound like a great use of money to me. And it's once again the way they use words against us.
I know,
that is not a violent retort. That is nobody going to call a jihad on anybody because they disagree.
But here's
this
the
was
thing.
a disagreement.
I know.
Get over themselves.
Although the idea of an atheist jihad is kind of a compelling one.
Oh, sure.
Listen,
fun.
The religious can have the word temple, just like Canada can have Justin Bieber and Celine Dion.
I think you should just be careful with what you give up.
But they keep letting them loose. They can have them, but keep them.
Now we're going to move on to a special report from Ian. The benefits of porn. Yes, right.
I think we kind of hinted a few times at
so here's what I don't understand, Ian, is that you called this segment the benefits of porn, but yet you only have one article that really talks about the benefits of porn, and it's a bullshit source.
Okay, well, there's a lot more to it, but okay, you do have something of a good point.
Can he come back from this? Yeah. It's been a devastating blow by Brian.
But it also has to do somewhat with what you decide to call porn. I've heard Playboy called porn. And I do have the 2 articles about what Hugh Hefner has done with Playboy. And and I actually have also seen the movie they're referring to. But Hugh Hefner was huge on civil rights. Huge. He was crossing boundaries and really pissing people off. His show was not being aired in certain states, not because of the sex, but because he would have black and white performers performing together. He used his publicity from Playboy to basically help the cause of civil rights. The very last interview ever done by Martin Luther King Jr. was in Playboy. He was the forefront. Playboy itself was really the forefront of civil rights, and actually even the women's movement. Before the women's movement became what it was, Playboy actually was already doing a lot of the stuff the women's movement has now taken over. So Playboy itself has been very, very beneficial to us society-wise.
Okay, but how is this a benefit of porn? This is a benefit of an activist who happened to be involved with porn.
But he was able to use porn in order to get the attention to it.
Well, yeah, because he had the money, right? But I'm not convinced that is a direct benefit of pornography.
Okay. Then we have admittedly it's from Cracked, but, Cracked is we've talked about before. If you actually look that stuff up, they actually are very accurate. But I love the way they present it. They have the 5 ways porn created the modern world, and this makes sense. It talks. I'm trying to remember all the ways, but one of the ways I remember was it talked about how basically the way you're using online credit cards, that came about because the porn site said, okay, how the hell are we going to make money?
Home video technology.
Yeah. What?
Home video technology is number 5.
Yeah.
Right.
Number 4, porn made your digital camera possible. And number 3, Gutenberg may have invented the printing press. Porn made it go. Okay. And let's see. What's the next one here? The internet, even more powerful by porn than you thought. Even more powered by porn than you thought. Sorry. Nice pictures. Yeah. Smut may help clean up the internet. Okay, so, there's something to be said here. Certainly the pornography industry is big, and they do tend to push certain markets. I think that they did have a lot to do with the growth of the internet. We know that they had a lot to do with VHS becoming popular. One of the reasons that Laserdisc, at first they didn't allow porn, and that some have contributed that to the failure of Laserdisc, that they took so long to finally let the pornography industry come onto that. DVD sales took off because of pornography. But it isn't just porn, but sure, they moved the industry in some ways. So yeah, there's some benefits there to our economy.
Sex in itself is a huge driving force for us. We are perverts. I don't care what, you have a little old gang like, you sickos, and you watch them.
I remarked last week that everybody's a sexual deviant to somebody.
Right. So porn is definitely a driving force. Our desire for it does drive us. It does push us to, find new ways to get it.
I think the fact that we come from such puritanical roots in this country, essentially the Pilgrims were so repressed based upon, versus the other people that they were running away from. And the pilgrims that we come from, we come from such puritanical roots that I think that sex is, if anything, more of a driving force for us than other countries.
Because we've made it taboo.
And fetishism and everything else that comes with it is more of a driving force. It gets repressed on the surface and it comes out in other ways.
So now I'm guessing the one you're referring to as being a questionable source is the one that actually says pornography has its benefits.
Yes,
which is an online poll.
Yeah.
What did it say? Okay. According to this, once more, I'll give Brian the questionable on this. It is a online poll. The incidence of rape in the United States has declined 85% in the last 25 years, while access to pornography has become freely available. Basically, now once more, that's one of those.
It's causation without correlation.
Yeah.
And that Penn and Teller actually covered this as well, talking about how the states with the highest sex crime rate are the states with the lowest access to porn. And just the opposite, the states with the highest access to porn are the states with the lowest sex crime rates. And they said, no, we're not going. We admit correlation does not mean causation, but there does seem to be a pattern there.
Let me ask this question real quick. What's the difference between pornography and erotica?
It depends on the person. Actually, I've seen some people that would consider the Venus de Milo pornography just because it's revealing. I consider it art, and there's a lot of stuff like it. It's your perception, and that's actually when we get to the other point of view on this. Are we running
away from a word a little bit here? The word pornography.
Well, pornography I've heard used to cover so many things that I don't necessarily agree with as porn. So it's a hard one to really say, where the lines are. A lot of that is your own comfortable level. Admittedly, with my boys, I have no problem with them seeing erotic art, but I've yet to put in a hardcore porn movie for them. If they go and they see a picture of a naked dress, they'll laugh and say, "Oh, she's naked," and that I have no problem with. But like I said, if they found my stash and started watching one of the movies, yeah, I'd be like, "Wait a moment, guys, you're not watching that." So, the level is, there are people who won't let their kids see just the, naked art because that would be too much for the poor little minds. It's like, wait a minute, my kids have seen it all, more or less, so I'm not too worried about it. And some of this, I have some interesting points to make because we're going to do something cool. We're going to actually present the other side at the end of this debate. And I have a few things.
We're kind of going to present the other side.
We'll talk about
right.
arguments and the legitimacy of them.
Okay.
So, while I agree with Brian that the article itself has some questionable stuff in it, it does take a good look at the patterns that are there within the benefits of porn, saying, and you look at it, you can kind of decide for yourself kind of thing. And then, of course, the next one is your typical ones that have been out there, using porn to improve your sex life. That actually has been a recommended thing. And it goes into, some of the, ways to do it. Watch and learn, don't stare, participate. It's not sex ed. Basically just saying, hey, get ideas on what you can try. Porn does do interesting stuff. And if you have a partner who is willing to try stuff, you can have a new connection through it, is the general idea of that article. I think we skipped one that I wanted to mention. I start off, first one I put here was why conservative prudes still desperate to control your sex life. That goes into some of the possible reasoning behind why we have groups out there that wish to regulate, our freedoms in sex. And that's always been there. What else do we got here? Okay. This one actually I'll bring back up in the counterpoint, but the 13 smartest porn stars of all time. That was an interesting one. I did not know that Ron Jeremy was actually a teacher before he got into porn. And it goes over a lot of these porn stars, they have like master's degrees and such, but they actually say, you know what? I enjoy sex. I'd rather go and do the porn and make the money that way and have, a lot more free time than to actually use my degree. So, the porn stars are not these stupid girls that are just have nothing else they can do with their life. They are ones that have made a conscious choice that says, hey, wait a moment, I'd rather do porn than use my degree. Then, after that, it was more of a fun one. Basically, Dennis Hoff is going to open a sci-fi themed brothel in Nevada. Dennis Hoff is the owner of the Bunny Ranch. The most famous brothel.
Yeah, and four other brothels. I guess this will be his fifth that he's opening now.
Okay, but this one's going to cater to sci-fi theme.
Right.
So it's like, ooh.
Yeah, and Heidi Klum's doing
Area 51 Alien Cat House. Now that's
something.
I love that.
Yeah, but and Heidi Klum is doing the costumes for this.
Okay, cool.
So
and the Brian's already talked about this, the format thing.
Yeah, the format wars.
Article, but the porn industry may decide DVD format war, which isn't too surprising.
Right, I don't think it did though.
Here's
the thing is that I disagree with their premise that that porn actually was the driving factor between Blu-ray and HD DVD. I think it was Sony Sony had the money to manipulate the industry, and they did. It cost them a lot of money to make their format the predominant one, and I don't really think that porn had as much to do with this one as maybe it did in the past. So I actually disagree with the article. I think it did with Laserdisc and DVD, and certainly with Betamax and VHF. There's a clear causation there. The clearest of all of them, quite frankly.
Plus, that's an old article that was written before the format war was decided.
That's true.
I threw an article in there at the bottom, which is I would consider a benefit of maybe not necessarily the pornography industry, as the point you made earlier, Brian, but a benefit that's come to our life through Hustler magazine, which is the fact that people doing parody and clear parody cannot be sued for damages based upon the parody.
Right.
And that's all because of a case called Hustler Magazine versus Falwell.
Right, that's Larry.
If you watch The People versus Larry Flint, they do that case in that movie.
An interesting point in there also that the article made was that Flint and Falwell actually became friends later on. Despite their opposing views, they became friends and actually liked each other. So, although I think isn't Falwell passed away, or
yeah, he has.
Thought so.
So, all right. So yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. I don't know that it is real clear. I mean, is there some clear benefits to porn? And I see what you're saying about Larry Flint and Hugh Hefner as activists.
I think the clear benefit, more than anything that could be a benefit of porn, the clear benefit is the benefit of free speech.
Okay.
The benefit of being able to do, I'm going to throw a little bit of West Wing in here. They asked the president if he thought pornography wasn't too high a price to pay for free speech, and he says, "Well, I think $5 is too much to pay for pornography." But essentially, the price of free speech is that people are going to say things, people are going to produce things, people are going to do things that you don't agree with, but I may not agree with what you say, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it.
All right. I'll take it. So let's move on to the Pink Cross Foundation.
Okay,
you can't say that.
Now, we presented what we believe in just now. The benefits of porn. I think for the most part we all kind of agree with what those articles were saying. Porn does have power. It's not going anywhere. People desire it. It's strong. You can help your relationship with it, believe it or not, despite some claims. Porn has been used to advance our society, to help with various First Amendment rights and civil rights, stuff like that. It's definitely done stuff. So here's the other side of it. This is a site, the Pink Cross Foundation. It is, what is her name? Basically, it was started by a former porn star called Shelley Lubin. And it basically, is promoting the other side of things, the negative aspects of porn. It goes into STDs, which isn't a big surprise to me. It goes into a lot of other stuff like women being tricked into doing sexual acts they actually didn't believe they were signing up for. A lot of stuff like that. And while, I've watched some of her videos, I've read some of her claims and stuff, and I've looked at it. It's interesting, what she has to say, and I believe she believes in it, although it's a very Christian group. One of the things they always push is how Jesus Christ will heal you and save you from it.
Right. But let me ask you this. What exactly is their position on porn? Because I read their mission statement, and it looked like it was just to help people who wanted to get out, and they were a faith-based organization. That's how I interpreted their mission statement. Not that they were necessarily completely anti-porn. Are they?
They are completely anti-porn. Okay. If you were to hunt down some of her videos, and I have a problem with some of the stuff she says within her videos.
That's okay.
She says that any woman in porn who tells you she wants to be there is lying to you.
Really?
Which I think there are a good amount that don't want to be there, but I don't for one moment believe all of them, because, you hear enough from it. See, basically, all of the producers of porn are evil men. There was an interesting one where she actually goes to a porn convention, and she knows that the owner of Vivid Video will be there, and she only stalks him. It's scary.
Well, Ian, quick question.
Okay.
She did this. The lady who started this foundation, she did pornography.
Yes, she did about 30 movies, I think is what she claims.
Okay, she did 30 movies. Did she get paid for them?
Yes.
Did she spend the money?
Probably.
Okay.
But according to her, she was forced into situations she didn't like. She would like show up thinking she'd just do a simple sex scene, and it'd be like a gangbang that she hadn't agreed to.
That's interesting. And she felt like she couldn't walk away.
Apparently, she wasn't happy with the price.
Yeah, there's something interesting here because a lot of people don't like their jobs.
Yeah.
Right. But they go and do them every day. Is it different because it's pornography?
Well, actually, let me finish a few things. Okay. I actually have an interesting point to make about exactly what you're saying.
Okay, great.
But I'd like to save it for the end of this. I want to try and present her case first.
Okay,
and other claims she makes. She talks about the drug and alcohol use within porn. And stuff like that. Although one of the interesting things, everything I've read, all the biographies he gives, the drug and alcohol use generally comes before the porn. They're already doing the drugs and alcohols before they get into the porn. But she seems to try and link the two as if the pornography encourages it. But generally, the main biographies he keeps giving are these girls that basically came from broken homes, ran away, stuff like that, got into drugs and alcohol, got into the party scenes, started to become strippers, prostitutes, and then ended up in the porn. And it's a pattern a lot of these biographies follow. And she tries to make it sound like the porn caused the problems, but the biographies I kept reading sound like the problems were there ahead of time. They just found porn to be easy money. And so I had a lot of problems with some of her reasoning behind it because it did feel like she was trying to use porn as the ultimate evil for it when in fact
it's a hot button topic. And it gets her support.
Right. And I don't necessarily disagree with her. I'm sure there are, people who are making porn that force the girls to do all sorts of stuff they don't want to. I honestly believe they should be given the choice, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to do that sex act, and opt out.
Right.
It is violating their rights, I think. So some of this I agree with her.
But isn't the other side of that, though, is that if they're constantly saying no to the stuff that's in the script, that they don't want to do that, they build a reputation of, being, not being willing to be in
which case they're in the wrong industry. And
right, sure.
I've never heard of a case where a porn actress was forced to stay in the industry. They get out, they find they can't make as good of money, and they go back in. I've heard cases like that, but I've never heard where they said, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, and leave, and have been, no, you have to do it.
Well, but here's the thing, that could very well have happened.
Yes,
there's a lot of comparisons here being made to the slave trade, and I unfortunately don't know enough about the industry to know if any of these claims can be substantiated.
And stuff like, was it Luna Lovelace? I think was the one.
Linda Lovelace.
Lovelace. She was forced to do her famous porno.
Yeah.
Deep Throat.
Oh.
No, she did not want to do that. She was forced into it. That is well documented.
Wow.
And so we know that kind of stuff does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't. And then her other big thing is the venereal diseases and stuff, the STDs. And I have a slight problem there. It's like, well, yeah, if you're having unprotected sex, you're going to get it. To me, it's almost like, if you're really that upset over getting it, why did you, do porn in the first place?
If you're having unprotected sex with people
I'm
who
sorry.
have it, you're going to get it.
Here's the thing: is that this is an issue of regulation, because they should be being watched for these kinds of things.
And there are porn companies that say we will, all our sex scenes use condoms. Some people have a problem with it. I don't completely understand. I actually did put an article up that I forgot to cover, talking about, I believe it's Los Angeles basically has a law going into effect that will require condoms in all porn films, and a bunch of the porn studios are claiming they'll just leave. I think that's a bit overreaction.
I think so as well.
We'll see what happens, but the porn I've seen with condoms hasn't affected me because that's not what I'm most interested in. I actually kind of like softcore porn to some extent because I don't have to look at the guy's thing. I have no interest in looking at a guy's penis, really. In my porn, I must prefer watching movie. So I do actually find softcore porn more erotic to some extent that way because I don't have to look at the guy's stuff. So But okay, so that's her case, and that's what I thought of it. Now, as Brian mentioned, he wanted to look at this as a job. Okay, what is the difference between porn and football? In football, these guys basically are hired for their bodies. They are told that, in fact, they are forced to, endure quite a lot. I mean, the training camps are pretty much endurance. You run so much in that stuff, you beat each other up. They get injured all the time, constantly, seriously injured. And you could even, although nowadays death isn't that common, but you could legitimately die on a football field.
You could. But one big difference is that if you show up on the field in a pair of fishnets, people are going to look at you strangely.
Yeah. But the main difference is the morals behind it. You look at the two, they're both jobs, they're both well paid. If you do good in football, either one, you could make it big, you can be famous, get a big name, but you're going to be more respectful for football when it's just as much selling your body as porn is.
Okay. Well, any job you do that has any physical component to it whatsoever is selling your body for money.
Yeah. I do think that, though, that doing pornography is different. I mean, it's a sexual act, and whether we like it or not, we have a stigma towards it, and we need to be conscious of that. And so I made that point, but realistically, I really do think that it's different than just going to another job that you don't like because of the stuff that you are doing. I do see some differences.
Okay. But like I said, there's a certain level of one of the reasons it's like that is because of society.
It's because of the word.
We have made it that way because our society has decided that that's immoral. Those are wrong things to do, and we see that
on the other side, though. Ian, we talked earlier about the fact that sex is very much at the core of our being.
Right.
It's one of the things that does make us human and makes more humans. And to trivialize something that is that important and turn it into a profession maybe is something of an offense in and of itself.
Wow.
What?
Well, but in that case, most entertainment becomes that. I mean, romantic comedies are just as offensive. They're taking something like a real relationship with another person and trivializing it.
Yeah, that's a good perspective.
If we look at it that way, the majority of our entertainment falls into that category suddenly. We do trivialize a lot of serious things about humanity. So
the problem is not that porn should have X ratings. The problem is that everything else should have X ratings too.
If you're viewing the level you just introduced porn as being harmful, yes, because like I said, our entertainment does trivialize so much.
But here's the thing, is that if these people are doing this willingly and they're doing the scenes that they want to do, I don't have a problem with it. Right. But if people are being asked to do scenes that they are uncomfortable with, then there's a problem.
Right, I agree. That was one thing that I did side with Pink Cross Foundation on is that type of stuff taking place is wrong. That is crossing the line. And the argument obviously is, well, you don't know what girls are stuck in that situation. All right. But the porn's already out there. It's not going away. And I do wonder if the Pink Cross Foundation has a problem with these husband and wives who are doing internet porn. Just the husband and wives saying, okay, you want to watch us do it? We'll let you. I can't think of a single thing wrong with that. But I bet the Pink Cross Foundation is against that because it is porn.
All right. So you got a final point here? Because we're out of time.
Well, the main point is, obviously, I believe there are benefits to porn. I do know, I do understand there is some evil to it, but we as a society demonize it to a irrational level. And, we've talked a few times before in this episode about, the prude ideas that have kind of dominated the birth of America, and I think they're still there, and they do, cause more harm than good in this case.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for
let's
joining.
Call it a night.
Yeah, let's call it a night. And I guess our next podcast is going to be Right to Die. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Science of Sci-Fi.
Oh, Science of Sci-Fi is next. Okay.
Science of Sci-Fi and then The Right to Die after that.
All right. So next week, or not next week, in 2 weeks, the Science of Sci-Fi. All right. Anything else, guys?
I think we're good. Well, do you want to talk about the breastfeeding real quick?
Nope, we're done.
Okay.
We're done.
All right.
Good night.
Time is
up.
Our hour is
past.
Good night,
everybody.
Good night.
No more. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast. For more information about the Amateur Skeptics, go to amateurskeptics.com. To send us feedback, suggestions, or big flaming insults, feel free to contact us at WTF@amateurskeptics.com. Other contact information can be found on our website.
You can leave a voicemail for the Amateur Skeptics podcast at 720-295-7785. Music for this podcast was provided by OFM. To find out more about OFM, go to myspace.com/OFMHQ. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons, No Derivatives 3.5 license. Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast.
Amateur Skeptics website, Facebook, and podcast album art is provided by and copyright Shadow Knight Digital Portraiture. Larger prints or custom pieces are available upon request.